Guys, here we go with the next episode of the 1985 Pontiac Fiero GT build from Monogram. Starting a little bit of work on this thing now, and just want to go over a couple of things that I've noticed while trying to assemble this kit. Now, let's all remember that it is a kit from the 1980s, so the technology back then is not exactly what it is now. So let me give you a couple of things that I've noticed. Okay, I'm working on the, I have the engine block assembled, transmission assembled, and as I'm fitting them together, I've noticed that the transmission wouldn't fully seat against the engine completely. And that's because when the two engine halves are assembled, the transmission has three locating pegs. One that has to hit here, one here, and one up here to keep the transmission centered and in the right orientation to the engine block. Now, the only thing is that when you assemble the engine, this side was molded a little bit lower than this side, so it was a little offset, so that the locating peg that is supposed to sit here was sitting on the block itself and wouldn't let the transmission fully seat against the block. So what I had to do with this one, which is, I'm pretty sure they're all going to be the same, is I had to shave down this area here just slightly, just to even it out with this one. And then I had the same issue here, where I had to shave down just a little bit of the plastic there. This gave enough clearance to allow, if we look at the back of the transmission, let's see if it shows here, to allow this tab, there we go, you can see a little better. Let's see where the three tabs are. 1, 2, and 3. Once you shave it down, it gave enough clearance for this tab and this tab to clear the cylinder block and allow the transmission to fully seat against the engine. Let me just put them together. Let's see if I can do this with one hand so you guys can see. I'm talking about here, a little tough to put it together with one hand. And I don't have my camera in the stand right now, so let's see. All right, here we go. Now we have the engine and the transmission mated together, and as you can see, now they're flush against each other, so that when they glue it all together, the transmission is going to sit completely flat against the engine for a much more realistic appearance than the way it was sitting before. So if you can find one of these kits and you take it on and build it, then just something you might want to look out for when you're assembling the engine and the transmission. Now that these are together, the block, the heads, it's basically, oh, one other thing, you're going to have quite a prominent seal on the oil pan, so that's going to require quite a bit of seam work there. I think I've got it just about gone. So once I put some primer on it, you won't even be able to see the seam on the oil pan, as that really, it really was a prominent seam there. And you don't want that to be seen once you have the car together, as you'll be able to see the oil pan whenever you look at the underside of the car. So you really don't want a seam there. The heads, when you're mounting them, I found that there is a little bit of play in the positioning of the heads. So if you take the lower intake manifold and set it on the block in its mounting peg, you can actually position the two heads in relation to the lower manifold, so that everything is properly spaced. Now, the lower intake manifold on these cars was made out of aluminum, so that will be painted separately. The block and heads are black. The water pump and timing cover are, and that would be your water pump here, timing cover in front of the engine, are also made out of aluminum, and so they should be painted correspondingly. And that pretty much covers most of your colors. This is the engine mount bracket, should also be black. And then you have your oil filter and your starter assembly. Your starter, which is usually black with, I think, if I remember right, I may have to look this up, it's a black body and it's silver on the front. Not 100% certain. That we'll have to look up. Oil filter will be whatever brand you want. So that is pretty much where we're at with the engine and transmission. The fun part's going to come in detail painting these. And the only other thing we have to talk about now is the body. Talked a little bit about this on the last video. I've almost got the side scoop that was on the driver's, on the passenger side, which this car doesn't have, completely covered up. Put the last layer of perfect plastic putty, which I've recently started using. I like it. It's easier to use than a Tamiya. Doesn't shrink too badly. Sands easily. I do like the Tamiya putty when you need to do something bigger, and I would still use the Tamiya, but this perfect plastic putty does work very well for my purposes here. And it is water-based, so that also makes it a little bit easier to deal with. The underside of the nose, that's filled in and done. So once this putty has a chance to harden and dry so I can sand it down, I think then we'll be ready for paint on the body. And one little tip, after you apply your first coat of primer, the badge is actually engraved and raised on this car so that it actually looks like the real badge. What I would do is cover that with some masking tape, because as you're painting the car, you can fill in all the detail on the badge, and then it's just going to look like you're going to lose the horse emblem, the winged stallion that's on the badge, and you don't want to do that. It's one of the interesting points of the car. So I just cover it with a little bit of masking tape, and that stays on there until after the color coat goes on, and then it'll be time to detail the badge. All right, well, that's it for now. Let's take a look at this. This is your engine assembly instructions right here. The entire drivetrain is covered in the first 3 steps of this build. All right, guys, that's it for this one. And I'll see you on the next one with the next update on this project. Okay, before I forget, just thought I'd give you a look at, this is every plastic scale model that has been released of the Pontiac Fiero throughout its scale model history. When it ran from MPC to Monogram. And these were the only actually released scale models. I have all 6 in their original packaging, along with several others to build, so these are going to stay on display here in my little area. The 85 GT was re-released, I think, back in 2005 they reissued it, or 2004, early 2000s they reissued this model. So it is easier to find than the MPC models, which tend to get a little pricey as they are much harder to come across now. So just a little fiero modeling history. I'm a big fiero fan, so this is a project which is very close to my heart. All right, guys. I'll see you on the next one.